One. Oh, hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful to be stuffed up the intro for everyone. Very grateful, very humbled to be joined by Tayla Isabella again. Tayla was on my podcast 6 months ago, I reckon, almost to the day, and she was chatting about her story and different things on there. So if you'd like to listen to Tayla's story, that link to that first chat will be in the show notes for everyone to have a look at. But Tayla, welcome to my show today. I had an interesting download in the shower about half an hour ago about what we should do today. And I sort of put you on the spot, but we're going to do a reading on me. So that's going to be interesting, Tayla. Welcome to the show today. This is going to be wild, I think.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm super open to that, and I'm excited to be back. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm just kind of ready to get into it because you and I were talking a little bit before we started this. And for anyone who's listening, when I'm doing readings for clients, I have this little scribble pad that I scribble on to get downloads and messages from, the other side. And the other side's just communicating with me through all these signs and all of these symbols. And I interpret the information and then I pass it on to the person that I'm reading for. And I have to say, Nathan, that I have been feeling, this overwhelming sense of, love and guidance from a grandfather energy for you. And he has been present since, you opened yourself up to the idea and giving me permission to connect with you. And I feel like you really do connect with him a lot on your own and in your own, meditations. And I just felt this overwhelming sense of energy from him, of him wanting to confirm for you that those things were real. And I have to say that, when I'm connecting too, I feel like there's a reference to some sort of experience where you either feel like you saw him or you feel like he was in the room with you, and it's really stuck with you. Have you ever had an experience like that where you felt like he was right with you or you saw him?
Yeah, so I know exactly which grandfather you're talking about. So when he passed away, I saw him in the kitchen standing right there in front of me, and he's just doing the dishes. I think
Oh,
I've spoken about that before in our first chat, and he was just standing in the kitchen doing
oh,
the dishes. And
okay,
yeah,
okay.
12 hours prior, I was in the hospital, and he had passed, and I saw him laying there. And then 12 hours prior to that, at midnight, he was
Yeah,
standing. Yeah, I was 17 at the time. I reckon that's the grandfather that's come through.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get a little bit more with him, but that experience wasn't nothing. And the further experiences that you have where you feel like he's connecting with you, it is him. Hold on here.
That's cool.
I have to say that when I'm connecting with him too, I'm getting this very overwhelming sensation within my chest area. And whenever I get a feeling within my chest area, it can either mean that before he passed, there could have been something going on either with his lungs and or chest area or heart area that's being highlighted. Would you understand that?
Yeah, I do understand that.
He is just acknowledging it and talking about it as just a, form of evidence that it's him. Um,
This is pretty cool.
I have to say that I feel another grandfather energy for you too, though. But it's interesting because when he's stepping forward, I'm feeling like there's a little bit of a disconnect. I don't know if this is where you weren't necessarily super close with him in your life, and there was this disconnect that was passed down between your family. But I felt him come forward, and I felt this grandfather that you were close with step back, and he said, "I want to come forward to tell you that I wish that I was a lot more close with you in your life than I was. And I take accountability for a lot of the things that I may have done that was passed down to the family." And then he's talking about how lots of hurt within those relationships stemming from certain things that he did was passed down to you, and how he's amazed at how you turn that into something to help other people. And he's wanting to acknowledge that. Do you understand him as well?
Yeah, he's come through a few times, and I felt we were pretty close when he was around.
Mhm.
So that's interesting that he's come through and said that. But yeah, he's been around a lot lately, the other one too.
Mhm.
And I feel that. I don't really feel it. I don't feel a disconnect though. I feel like we are connected, but that's interesting that he's come through and said that. This is pretty cool.
When he says disconnect, it's not that he's disconnected to you now. What he's
Ah,
referencing to is when he was in the physical world, there could have been maybe we weren't as emotionally close as we wanted to be with
no,
one
that
another.
makes sense.
That's
Yep.
what he's acknowledging. You're not
Yep.
disconnected now. It's a prior kind of thing. And the reason why is because he's just trying to come forward saying that he understands how you would have felt in those situations and almost taking accountability for it in a sense and just saying, I love you, I care about you, I am here for you whenever you need me, but I hope that you understand that I see things on a different level than when I was here. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
This is cool. For everyone listening and watching, Taylor is very, very good at what she does. So 2 year wait list, Taylor was saying earlier. So if you want to book a session in, you might have to wait a couple of years.
I get little strange pieces of evidence that come forward, and I always have to acknowledge it. Have you or your brother recently attempted to either cook something or bake something and it didn't go in the way that you expected it to go? Because there's something coming up about that where both of your grandfathers are just acknowledging it, that they saw this event happen, and it's like they're just chuckling about it, but just saying, I was there and witnessed it.
So what you're saying is in the last few nights or the last couple of weeks, we've cooked something that hasn't gone to plan.
Either somebody tried to make something, cook something, it didn't go in the way that we thought, or something happened in the process of being in a kitchen where we were chuckling and laughing.
Yeah,
That's what.
yeah, yeah. It
Okay,
happened a few
okay,
nights ago. Yeah.
okay. What happened?
Well, I was cooking up some steak. This was last Saturday night, and we had a bit of a chat and left it on the barbecue a bit too long, and it was not burnt, but it was overdone. Is that what they're
Okay,
referring to? I feel like that's what they're referring to.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. It's just those little things that they bring up as
that's
well.
cool.
They're also showing me my symbol for a happy birthday. So if we had a loved one just celebrate a birthday, or is a birthday coming up around your family circle?
What are we in September? Yeah, there is a birthday coming up. Yes.
Okay. They're wishing this loved one a very happy birthday from them on the other side. And they would like everyone
Interesting.
to know that.
Interesting.
When they come forward, I feel like they're referencing to you going through this very transformational period in your life where you are
Mm,
starting to outgrow certain people around you in your life. What I'm seeing is my symbol for that. I'm starting to realize that, I have had important people in my life, but I'm wanting to put myself around different people and change that kind of, environment around me. And they're acknowledging that that's something that they want you to continue to do because not everyone's meant to stay in our lives for the full ride, and as hard as it is, it's important to set those boundaries with people around you, and they're just reminding you that they're right in your corner and you're feeling all this stagnant energy because all these different changes are coming. And even in regards to your career path, they're just saying keep doing what you're doing, and they also have just presented you with an opportunity, whether you've just gotten this opportunity or not, or you're about to start this new project. They want you to know that they're proud of you with this new project that you're about to start and you're about to do. Do you understand that too?
absolutely. I know exactly what they're talking about. And it's interesting that they have come through and said that I've been feeling like I know that there's a transformational period that's been taking place over the last 3 months. And yeah, I really felt their energy around me in that support of what you were just talking about in terms of changing people, changing environments, and wanting to be around more people that are doing the things that I'm doing. Yeah, that really resonated.
So, know that that's them also connecting with you and giving you those little
Nudges.
stepping stones.
Yeah,
Yeah, nudges, exactly. And
interesting.
this is another very random thing. Has somebody recently either gotten rid of a bunch of clothing or just went clothing shopping? Because I'm seeing garbage bags of things and I feel like I'm getting rid of it and I'm getting new clothing or something along those lines is what they're showing me.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't gone through and thrown out stuff, but I did do that in my old home. I went back to my old home 3 months ago and I threw out a heap of old clothes that were still in the old wardrobe, if that's what they're
I
referring to.
see.
But
I
yeah,
see.
That's
Okay.
cool.
Interesting. That's just coming up. Okay. Have you got a family wedding coming up or a friend's wedding? Because I'm hearing wedding bells and I'm seeing them attending some sort of wedding or some sort of a celebration that's coming up. And it's almost as if they're acknowledging, we know about this. This is exciting. This is going to be fun. And we will be attending in spirit.
That's an interesting one to bring up. I don't feel like there's any weddings coming up in terms of people around me, but it's interesting. There might
So,
be something along those lines coming by the sounds of
yeah,
it.
if
Yeah.
they have, maybe they haven't announced it yet, or this isn't something that's happened, but I'm seeing a big group of people together and they're really acknowledging that everyone's going to be together in this big group. And that's what
It's
they want you
interesting
to know.
because I had a dream about a celebration. This is interesting, Taylor. This has come up. So I had a dream probably last week about a celebration, and I was
Interesting.
running. I checked the time; it was 4:30 a.m. And I'm pretty militant in my routines and that. So I was like, oh, this is well past my bedtime. So I was freaking out, running around trying to go to bed. So that's an interesting correlation there
Yeah.
from my dream
Okay.
because I had a dream about a celebration. So then that's come through now. It's interesting.
How recently was that?
That dream was last week.
There we go. Okay. So that's not nothing. So there
No.
is going to be something coming up then, and they're acknowledging it for a reason. So
Yeah.
whatever this event is that will be happening, they're trying to acknowledge that they want you to know that they will be with you during this big event that's coming up with this group of people.
And it sounds
So
like they were showing me for a reason too, weren't they?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
pretty cool. Interesting.
I will just say that the overall message that I just get with them is you really do connect with them on a daily basis and are so connected with them, and they love you more than you know, and they'll be there for you whenever you need them. And you're exactly where you need to be right now, and you just need to give yourself patience and more love in regards to all the stagnant energy that you're feeling in your life
Hmm.
right now, because it's putting you on the path to where you're meant to be next. So that's all that's going on there. So they're saying pour more love and support into yourself. I know it's not easy right now. I know that it's kind of hard right now with a lot of things, but we're in your corner and we love you and we care about you and we'll always be there. It's just a quick little message that I'm getting when I'm tuning in with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool message. It sums up my last probably few months, last few weeks. Yeah, feeling a bit stagnant in different times. And yeah, that was cool. Thank you so much for that, Taylor.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.
That's
Let
really
that
cool. So
caution somewhere.
if anyone's feeling interested in reaching out to Taylor for a reading, her website will be in the show notes. I'm pretty sure she did say there's a two year wait list as well. Taylor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you so much. And that's interesting that you brought up that last message. So I have been feeling that stagnant energy as I'm processing the next part of my life and the transformation that I'm about to embark on. It just all sort of wrapped up nicely there. Thank you for that.
Yes, of course.
So
Of
that's how
course.
Taylor runs a session for anyone that's interested. Thank you so much for using me as a guinea pig. We'll get on to the chat we're going to have. So Taylor, I did have it come to me earlier that as a kid, I've started posting videos, and that as a kid, I used to see beings and different things, and then I sort of shunted it off because society says it's imaginary, society says it's woo woo, and I was told it's in my head, and then I sort of just stopped. That I don't know, but I don't want to call it a disconnection, but it sort of just didn't happen for a bit. Then I go on the journey, and then you sort of awaken, and then you see those things again, and yeah, I just wanted to have a chat to you about the things that you used to see as a kid because I feel like we all can see, well, we've all had these experiences, but we just palm them off as, I don't know, imaginary, or we get that fear about it. What's sort of
Hmm.
your take and your experiences
Yeah.
as a child? Yeah, we'll go deep
Yeah.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I in the previous podcast that we had, I did talk about, this man that I would always see in my room, and he was definitely the most significant energy that I would see. He would pop up at the same time every night. He was very vivid. I remember him super clearly, and he still pops up, in my dreams here and there. I remember seeing lots of shadows, just lots of beings around me and not knowing exactly what it was, until a medium came along and helped me out with it. And she taught me how to close the door to the energy. And it was just picturing closing a door. And that's when all of the energy stopped. Those were mostly just the most significant energies that I felt as a child. And I also just remember being very in tune when it came to pregnancies of my mom's friends. Everyone would always ask me, what's the gender of the baby? And every single time it would make sense, it would be right. And children are so much more intuitive than us. And everybody has this ability. It's just a matter of if you keep it open or not. And the reason for that is because everything is vibrational frequency. So if you look at an emotional human vibration chart, at the very top, it's love and happiness and content and peace and just all happy and good emotions. And at the bottom of this chart is grief and shame and doubt and insecurity and all of that. And then there's a middle. And children are always at a very high vibrational frequency. And the spirit world operates at a high frequency at all times. So that's actually where the name medium comes from. And it's because the spirit world needs to lower their vibration and we need to raise our vibration and meet them in the middle. So that's why it's called medium. So yes, so children are just at that very high vibrational frequency. So they are closer to the spirit world. They're able to see the message from the spirit world a lot more clearly. And as you get older, that starts to change because you start to have outside influences. You start to, get to the point where you care what other people think about you. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do in your life. And our vibration starts to fluctuate a little bit more. But if we become aware of raising, that frequency and that vibration to what it used to be and focusing on where we are on that chart, it makes us a lot closer. And it's very interesting too, because even in sessions with lots of clients, if they're at a very low frequency or they have a wall up, it's very hard for me to get in because that wall is just up. And, lots of people can say, I don't feel my loved one. I'm struggling to feel them. I don't feel like they're with me. And it has to do with your vibrational frequency. It's because they're at such a high vibration and you're lower. So they're sending these signs to you and it's just going above you. It's almost like you have these blinders on to what they're receiving. And the way to open it up is honestly just trust and love and just saying, I trust you. I know that you're here, and picture yourself opening the door. So that's kind of my take on why children are so much more intuitive than, well, we're all intuitive, but it's just they're them, they don't care what people think about them. They say what they want when they want. It's almost kind of ignorance is bliss kind of thing. There's lots of things that they're going to have to go through that they don't know yet, and they're just purely them, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I just want to circle back to something else you said about the blocks and stuff. It's an interesting question I'm going to ask you because in my experience with that, if someone's holding on to something that that person might have done in terms of guilt, some shame, or mainly guilt, in terms of that attachment to that person, so that person might have died unexpectedly and that person might not have got to say the things that they wanted to say. Can that also, can that also be a wall, as you put it earlier, to allowing that in if you're holding on to so much negative energy or emotion towards that person that's passed?
No, I wouldn't
No?
say that because everything that you're feeling when you lose a loved one, you're going to have the grief. You feel this wound within you that's hard to fill. And your loved ones unconditionally love you no matter what. And they're trying to help you work through those emotions. What I mean with a wall is, being in the energy of my loved one's not with me. They're not listening to me. They're not here. Not them being on a vibrational scale of, the grief and the shame and all of that. It's that negative mindset of they're not here. They're just not here. So when you say that and you have that attitude, it just closes the door because it's just going to fly over your head a little bit versus, somebody who's very open and it's, I know that they're here with me and I get signs from them all the time, but I just need to hear and know that they're not upset with me. And your loved ones in the spirit world aren't upset with you about anything ever. And the reason why is because they're not a human anymore. You're a soul. And when you come to Earth, you are having a human experience and you have a human body, you're experiencing human emotions, and that is connected to the physical human experience. When you pass, you don't have the ability to feel negative energy or guilt or shame or anger towards anyone. The only thing that you have the ability to see is things from almost a bird's eye view. You don't have an ego. Your ego is shed when you go back to the spirit world. That's the whole purpose of why you're here. So they just want to make sure that we're okay. If you're somebody who is worried about your loved one being upset with you about things happening, I can promise you they're most definitely not. They have an understanding and they just want to make sure that you're okay, is what I see in every reading.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because we can discuss that too. So from what I've felt into and through my experience, I feel that they go through a process when they do cross of they might have done some things here like abuse or, and they face that again and then forgive that to then, I guess, transition. Would that be correct? Because from my experience, just say you had someone here that did some really horrible things while they were on Earth. I
Yeah.
feel like they if they didn't have that karma or that moment on this plane, I feel like when they transition, part of that transitional process is they face that, forgive themselves for what they did on this Earth plane.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. They have to come to an understanding.
Yeah.
So, someone who does really awful things passes, they're not going to a place of darkness, they're not being punished for it. We're all energy. We go back to where our energy came from. And you do have to go through this process where you have to experience, what you did and how you made every single person feel in your life. You're going through it, but it's from a very loving approach. It's, hey, this is what you did. This wasn't right. Let's figure out why you did it. It's all about a learning experience.
Yeah.
If you think about anyone who could be struggling with their mental health, maybe they're in the beginning stages of not making good decisions. You're not going to shame them and punish them for it. What are you going to do? You're going to try to help them and help them work through it. That's how it is in the spirit world. You're working through it, you're figuring it out, and you pick your next lessons and your following lifetime that you need to learn from what you previously did. And there's no human ego involved. So you choose them in the way that you exactly need to help your soul's growth and evolution, is what I see.
Yeah. And do you believe that there's some form of a karmic cycle? So, I feel that if they've done something, well, then if they haven't had that done to them, do they then choose that next experience to have that done to them so that in the next human experience they know or they can feel what that felt like to have it done to them? Is that a part of it too?
It can be, but it's going to be different for everybody. And the reason why it's different for everybody is because everyone's soul contract and blueprint in their life is so different than another person. So
Yeah.
even two people who did not very good things in their last lifetime, they're kind of on the same level, but they're not, because the things that they did are so different from one another. So they have to choose completely unique roles. And also, what else comes into play is your other family members. So you have all your other family members, you have soul contracts with them, they're your soul group. So it depends on that too. Your soul group, and once everybody gets to the spirit world from your soul group, you decide, okay, this is what we need to do. And what you learn in your next life is also dependent on those other soul tie relationships. So it's totally different for everyone. It's not, yes, everyone has to exactly experience what they did. It's just a unique
Yeah.
blueprint.
Okay.
There's no one specific thing.
Interesting. Another question for you too. Do you see multiple like timelines, multiple blueprint? Oh, not really. I think everyone has one. Actually, a good question. Does everyone have sort of one sort of blueprint? Is there multiple blueprints? Is it purely from the choices that we make? I'm just asking for someone that hasn't sort of dabbled in this stuff before. Yeah.
I see one soul contract. That's your soul contract. It's,
Yep.
what you have decided to go through in your life before you came here. And I will say though that I don't believe that everything is set in stone though. I believe
Yeah.
that within this blueprint and this contract, you can change the trajectory. I can put myself in a position right now where the choices that I'm making, I'm happy with a lot of them right now, but I could easily wake up tomorrow and start making really bad decisions if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So you can change the trajectory. You're the most powerful person in your life. You are the creator of your reality. And I don't believe everything is set in stone. And that's why when it comes to, even readings, just because I say something that I'm feeling doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The spirit world can show me an amazing career opportunity being passed to somebody. But if that person is not within the energy of wanting to really receive that, they're not going to. It's up to that person, and energy is always shifting. So timelines are always shifting of everything. And it's because you are the creator of your reality. So I'm very careful when it comes to predicting things that happen because I don't really feel that it's my place to do it. I feel
Yeah.
like things can come up like, oh, I see a baby coming into the picture, or this thing that we were talking about, a big celebration or people coming together, but it's not, I can't tell someone exactly what I see them doing. This is the career you're going to do. This is what you need to do. That's not my place.
No.
That's that person's choice and decision.
That's a good answer, and that's well said. And it can also segue into the next part too, because it's interesting because a lot of people go and see people like you, psychics and mediums and that, and then but some of the psychics and mediums actually tell people what might be coming. So then that
Mm-hmm.
person attaches to that outcome.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, a few months will pass by and you go and talk to that person and they're like, well, they told me such and such was going to happen, or I was going to meet such and such, and it didn't happen. So that psychic's no good. So they just palm it off and go, well, that psychic told me didn't happen. It's no good. I feel like those things can still happen, but you as in us, like the person you're reading for, has work to do on themselves to allow that opportunity or person or thing into their lives. They're not, it's like they're sitting around waiting for something to happen that they're being told is going to happen. So they're just waiting for it instead of doing that work and taking inspired action towards that. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it
Yeah.
definitely does. That's exactly, I completely agree with that. And I always tell my clients that I say, this is the current energy of what I see for you and what you can really make happen right now. But
Yep.
that's their choice and their decision. And, it's the same thing as if I was to say, okay, I'm really struggling in my life right now. I need to go to a therapist. But that therapist cannot help me through my emotional problems unless I am applying myself, doing the work myself on the outside. It's the exact same thing when it comes to, psychic readings. And I do believe that there are people who can, make those predictions, but at the end of the day, it's up to the person being read to make those things
Yeah.
happen. It is.
Yeah.
So,
Because a lot of people go and see you or go and see different people, but they'll sit in oh, they're no good because that thing they told me didn't happen. But you don't see them doing anything in their lives to sort of change
yeah.
or allow those things in. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that people get in that mindset of not really wanting to do any work or anything to get that opportunity or whatever that psychic said that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I will say, there are a lot of psychics out there that probably shouldn't be reading for many people. I will say that. But at the end of the day, no matter what a psychic tells you, it doesn't mean it's exactly going to happen and that's your destiny. It's just
Mm,
not. That's not how life works. That's not how life is.
no.
And for me, I'm just all about things being validated as true, within
Yeah.
readings. Has to be validated as true. It's, this is what I'm feeling. Can you make this make sense? Does this make sense to you? How does this make sense to you? That's how you know that the true connections are being made.
Like what you did with
Um,
me. Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just you
You
sort of
build a,
pose questions. So it's like they show you something and then you just pose questions to get that person to be like when like the dinner thing you said before, like I knew
Mhm.
exactly where to go when you mentioned that they were having fun
Yeah.
watching us cook dinner that went a bit awry. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
You sort of probe that person to allow them to speak about that experience. I
Hmm.
like how you approach
Hmm.
it. It's a good approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, it's important to not get too much,
Yep.
but there's a fine line between it. I love when things that I'm picking up on are able to be validated in those ways, right? It's just a super random thing, right? That you were cooking steaks and then that happened and you didn't even realize they were watching you. It's just things like that. So
Yeah.
it's just all about the validations of it.
Yeah.
Um,
What would be the one I guess message that you've received? Well, actually, yeah, what would be the most special message or moment through your mediumship that you look back on and go, wow, that really helped that person, or that really
yeah.
validated their connection, or like what was it really? Yeah, share a special moment over your last few years of doing this that
Hmm.
really sort of touched your heart and touched the person that you were talking to and the
Yeah.
spirit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any come to
Oh,
mind?
there's quite a lot.
Oh, there is.
The hmm, I will say this one is one that I love telling the story, and I tell this story most of the time when someone asks me this, and it's because it just touched my soul a
Mm.
lot. So I was on TikTok and I was doing a live stream reading, and for those of you who don't know TikTok or don't know what that is, you can live stream on TikTok, and um, I was reading for people, and people were just responding to me through the comment section. And when I'm reading for people, it's just on the spot. It's not pre-planned or anything. I have people in the chat choose who I'm reading for, kind of like
Ah.
that. So
Yeah.
they had picked somebody out, and it was just this immediate connection. And I felt this little boy walk up next to me, and I felt him, and he said, "I want you to tell my mom that I'm okay." So I asked her, I said, "Do you
Oh.
understand that you would have unfortunately lost your son?" And she said, "Yes." And then when he came forward, he decided to show me this little red car. And then he showed me blue paint splattered everywhere. And I didn't understand it. I said, "How do you understand him showing me blue paint splattered everywhere and a little red car?" And she actually kind of froze in the chat for a second, and she said, "Today is the anniversary of my son's passing, and I was cleaning underneath my couch, and I found his dried up blue paint palette and a red car underneath my couch today when I was cleaning." And I said, "There you go." So she said that she was just having a really, really hard day, and it was just this super instant connection. And she messaged me after, and it was just exactly what she needed. And she even messages me here and there and shares with me how much that just helped her and changed her life and showed her that he was there, because it was just so out of nowhere. Like I wasn't expecting to be read, and I was like, well, they choose and they led me to you, and I wasn't even going to go on the live stream that day, but I felt like I had to, and I wasn't even on very long. So that's one that I think about a lot for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like you were supposed to do that live stream and you were supposed to get there. That's so cool
Yeah,
because you even felt
yeah,
like you shouldn't go on, but you went on anyway and you had that.
yeah,
It's like you were supposed to do that. That's cool.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
stories like
It was
that.
her son, right? He would have pushed me to do that, and she was the first one. So none of that had to do with me. It was them. Um, what's another one?
That's awesome.
The other week, actually, I had a session and I was connecting my client to her daughter, who she unfortunately lost. And within the reading, I was shown this portrait, and her daughter made me feel that it was this portrait that was recently made or recently created, or she just picked it up, something along those lines. And this was her first ever reading, and she was very nervous the whole time. And at first she said, "No, I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not sure what you're talking about." And I said, "I just want you to keep it with you." And I got this email from her about an hour or so after, and she said, "I don't even understand how I didn't know what you were picking up on, but just last week I was at the store and I saw this photo, and it reminded me of my daughter and my son, and it's this photo of this little girl and this boy like putting their heads on each other's shoulders, and she said, I picked it up last week and I forgot that I did that. So it was just an interesting validation for her to have after, but that was supposed to happen so that she could have this extra hello. So that was an interesting one recently too. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Have you felt as though, like, a lot of people will say, oh no, it's woo-woo and they don't believe it, but when you have synchronicities and stories like that, it makes it very hard not to. I know for
Yeah.
me that I had similar synchronicities and stuff. I'm thinking about my journey a bit here, and like, it gets to a point, I feel, where you can't not, I guess, trust or believe in that stuff. Because for me, it got to a point where it's like, well, these things are happening, these synchronicities are happening. Like, it got to a point where I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, it's it's so real, and I can't ignore it any longer.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I feel that some people just aren't meant to have that awareness
Yeah. Okay.
in their life, in their certain life. That's what I will say, because we're all on these completely separate journeys. And
Yeah.
some of us, our souls are um further along in our spiritual journey than others. I'm not saying we're better than them or we're further along. Everyone's separate. I just mean everyone's experiencing life in all these different ways, and not everybody is meant to have that awareness, I think. And also I think that those people have to be put in our path and around us to help our growth. If we were in a what would be the point of coming here on earth if everybody agreed with the same things and thought the same things, and there'd be no discovery. It'd be boring, honestly.
Yeah.
There would be no point in even being here. So those people are put in our path for a reason, and those who are more open to the concept and synchronicities of all of that, we're meant to challenge those who aren't, and they're meant to challenge us to keep us, in alignment and trusting
Mm.
ourselves and trusting our beliefs, and regardless of what anyone else says. That's how I view it, for sure.
It makes sense because I feel like, yeah, because it's interesting because you could say about world events, you can say about spiritual stuff, like it's all this sort of divide and conquer sort of strategy. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you're saying, well, the divide and conquer strategy is there's supposed to be a divide and conquer for us all to sort of eventually come together in some sense.
Yeah, and but it's in our own individual ways. So
Yes.
you're supposed to learn who's meant to be in your circle,
Yep.
and other people are supposed to learn who's meant to be in their circle. And these people who come in and challenge us are helping us get there.
Mm.
So we have to have those challenges. I would not want to live a life without other people challenging me. Um, Lots of the reasons why I am who I am is because of the people who have challenged
Mm.
me in my life. They continue to challenge me, and that's how I get to know myself and what I want and who I want to be around and the environments that I want to be within. But it's all this big plan that's leading us all to where we're supposed to be in this lifetime.
Mm. When you first started this stuff, how did you go with, because I feel like a lot of people don't express themselves as mediums or the spiritual stuff because they don't want to get attacked online and they don't want the negativity. How did you
Mhm.
go when you first started putting yourself out there with a couple of the everyday Joes having a go at you? How did you, because for someone that's sort of starting that journey that goes, well, I can do this too, what would be your advice for that person that's starting to combat or deal with the everyday Joe that will just be on there as a troll?
Yeah. You know, One thing I will say is no matter what you're doing, even if it's not this type of work, you're going to have people misunderstand you and not get it.
Mm.
No matter what you do, I know that it is a very sensitive thing with this because there's not lots of believers with it. But what I just reminded myself was that the right people would support me, and that the ones who didn't support me shouldn't be in my life anyway. They shouldn't be in my life anyway. And I just release the need to control everybody's opinions and thoughts about me. That's out of my control. What
Mm.
other people think about you and what you're doing is none of your business. It's truly none of your business. It's what you think about yourself. And it's just about reminding yourself of that and surround yourself with the people who do understand and do support you. That's what I did. I surrounded myself with people who push me further. Your circle is very, very important. Who you surround yourself with, and if you are doing something that you're excited about and people are bringing you down and they're not motivating you to do it, um, take a deeper look at your circle. I will just say that. So
Good, that's awesome advice. And it's interesting too, because a lot of people won't sort of change the circle, they'll stay where they are, which is probably their journey as well. But yeah, really awesome advice. And Taylor, on just finally, just one of the last things we'll talk about is we'll circle back to children. I believe children are very, very powerful. And I think you believe that too. And it's about, I feel it's about nurturing that soul development. And it's quite hard in this modern world to nurture a soul development, all these systems and all these things in place that I guess shunt off that soul development and sort of breed people to be like compliant workers and order followers and different things. How do you go about Not how do you go about, how can we collectively allow these powerful children's souls to be nurtured in a better way? Because I know for me and during
yeah,
the schooling system, I was sort of not
yeah,
connected, or well, I think we're always connected, but I was, I guess, shunted off from that spiritual stuff because I had to be a certain way in school, if that makes sense.
mhm. I will say that the
Or is
best
that
way
part
to
of their journey too?
I it will be part of their journey 100%. It
Mm.
definitely is. You've got to have those experiences, and
To then
everyone's path
rediscover
looks
yourself,
completely
yeah.
different. Yeah,
Mm.
I strayed away from this part of me when I was young, and I don't regret that at all. It
Yeah.
happened in the way that it was supposed to. But when it comes to just in general being there for children and nurturing them, they do have a lot of important lessons to teach us. And the best way
Mm.
that we can allow them to do that is to nurture ourselves. Because if we're not pouring into ourselves, how can we give to them? How can you give to anybody around you? So it all starts with self love. And one thing I've really realized lately is if everybody loved themselves a little bit more, life would be a lot easier for everybody. And when it comes to children, it is just a part of our soul contract and our life journey. And I think everybody just needs to put more effort into just pouring more love into themselves so that life can be more peaceful and a better place to be and not as hard as it is.
Yeah, and for someone out there, how can one start to love and nurture themselves a bit more than what they currently are?
It's definitely something that you have to do slowly and every day. It's not an overnight thing.
Mm.
It's about catching yourself when you're being negative towards yourself, even being negative towards other people. If you ever put energy out where someone else is irritating you or someone else is making you angry, that's going to affect your own energy.
Mm.
So, it's all about training your mind of why am I being negative? How can I flip this into a positive thing? If something negative is happening to you, I always ask the why. What is the
Yeah.
why? There's always a why between that with something that's happened. I feel like every single person listening to this can think about something that happen where they felt like it was the end of the world and then now they look back and think wow, that was a really big blessing in disguise. There's always a why. Ask yourself the why and be patient with yourself. And this is also something that I share with lots of my clients, and it's pretending that there's this invisible cup in front of you and you pay attention to the water levels in this cup, and the water levels is you. And if your cup's below empty, it means you're not pouring enough into yourself, and it means that you can't pour into other people. If your cup is full, it means you can give yourself to other people and help other people right now. But if it's below half, it means you got to stop, take a break and go do something for you and sit with it and sit with the negative things that you're experiencing because you're not giving yourself enough. So that's what I always picture in front of me all the time.
That's cool because then you'd see, so you can see it first. And it's going with that first instinct. Well, if that first image is that cup being half, well, then your cup's half. Because I
Yeah.
feel like people getting their own way with the imaginary stuff, and they don't trust that first sign or that first instinct. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's about trusting
Exactly.
that
And
first, because
yeah.
usually, from my experience, the first thing I see or the first thing I'm about to do is usually the right or the correct way. But then
Mhm.
I find myself sitting and maybe not doing that and then doing it in another way. And then it's sort of not, and it's like, oh, if I'd have just done that first, because for me, it's
Mhm.
it's the first thing. It's like the first thing is usually the
Mhm.
right way. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then that's also a part within you that is making choices for other people and not yourself.
Correct.
So if you're, yes. So, that's another thing too, is it's okay to tell other people around you, I'm tired, I need to give to myself right now. I'm sorry, I can't give this to you, or I can't be there for you in this way. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think lots of people struggle to say no and have
Yeah.
certain energetic boundaries with everybody. And
Yep.
then it's this vicious cycle of not pouring enough into yourself and not being able to give enough. And I feel like that's why there's lots of toxicity and lots of relationships
Why
to
do you
begin with.
feel? Yeah, and why do you
Yeah.
feel people can't say no? What's your perspective on not being able to say no? Is it a people pleasing thing? Is it deeper than that? What's your
It's
take?
it's a self-respect and self-love lack
Yep.
is what it is. When you being able to say no is a sign of self-respect. So it means that you aren't loving yourself in the way that you should. And that means you have to ask yourself, why is that? Where is this coming from? Chances are the answer is going to be your childhood, how you
100%.
grew up, how your parents were, um, all of that. And also, it's who's the circle around you? Do you have people around you that you're surrounding yourself with just because who aren't making you feel good about yourself, who don't let you say no? It's important for you to have a group of people who don't shame you for saying no. So that's another big thing too.
Yeah, because I believe the ages 0 to 7, 0 to 8 really shape our lives going forward, because we're picking up on people around us, parents of friends and school and all these things. And it feels like we're not lost, but we're not who we truly are. We've taken on all these stories and all these belief systems that may not have been necessarily ours, but then we act them out. And then once you sort of start that conscious journey, I find that you're like, well, that was someone else's story. Maybe something about money. Well, that was my parents' way of doing things, or that was their story. But then I'm living out that same story. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily my story. So then you're right. It's like, what is mine and what is true to me? And it's about asking those questions. I like that,
Yeah.
because I find that once you start that conscious journey, a lot of things and belief systems and thought patterns and attachments and people aren't necessarily true to you, because it was someone else's story that they put. Does that make sense? Yeah.
No, I understand what you're trying to say for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that pure inner child that
Mm.
we start out as. And then as you get older, you start to realize that it's not what life isn't what you thought it was. And then you kind of lose yourself in the process. And then getting older is all about connecting back with how you first started, the things that you loved when you were young, how you loved yourself when you were young. And that's just all about the journey. It's all about the discovery of it. And as hard as it can be, I think it's really beautiful, to be honest. I think it's really powerful and really beautiful, the process of it
Same.
all. And I think it's important to reflect on each step of it all. There's one thing I always say, and it's focus on the step, not the staircase. I feel like everybody's looking at the top of the staircase all the time, and they're not looking at the step. the next step up, or taking time to reflect at the view on the step that they're on. So that's a very important thing too. It's all about the discovery and the journey. Sit with it, sit with what you're doing now. Don't think too much ahead into the future, because you could think something about what you want in your future, and the next step that you make, you might think completely different than what you thought on the last step. It's just kind of how I view it. Does that make sense?
Hmm. This is a good piece of advice because I feel like once you start that conscious journey, and I know for me, I had all these awesome things coming. And you're right, I would spend a lot of time in the future of what was coming instead of being in the now and going, well, let's enjoy the journey of getting there. So I like that
Exactly.
staircase analogy because I was always at the top of the step, not
Yeah.
really focusing on the step that I'm on. And then you're right,
Yeah.
also looking back and going, well, look how far I've come. I'm too busy wanting the carrot at the end. I've been in
Mm-hmm.
that space before. So I like that staircase analogy. That really resonated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I think about all the time, or I try to remind myself of, because I think we could just get super carried away, and everyone's always on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the
Yep.
next thing. And that's how life passes you by so fast. And you
Yeah.
look and I didn't even actually enjoy it. I wasn't even fully present because I was constantly living in a reality that hasn't even happened yet, while I was in one that was actually going on.
And that's something I'm getting better at is being more present in that moment and enjoying, like if I'm down the beach or if I'm even this podcast, like enjoying the moment and not thinking about what's next. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning here and it's like, well, I haven't even thought about what's next. Like I'm in the moment with you and
Mm-hmm.
having this awesome chat. But, me prior would have been like, oh, okay, we've got a podcast with Taylor. Oh, I've got another one in a couple of hours, and then it's like no, it's like set reset. Like this podcast with Taylor's been awesome, and it's like something I've getting better at is just being in that moment and enjoying whatever is happening now, not
Mm-hmm.
prior or not later.
Exactly. And
Mm.
also, because you never know when your last day is going to be. That's the biggest thing I've learned with what I do for a living. You don't know when your last day on this planet is. And it would be very sad to live your last day thinking and living in a reality that's not even actually happening and what's happening in front of you. So that's another
That's a
thing
good
too.
piece of advice. I talk
Mhm.
a lot about that too, and I talk a lot about being on that deathbed when it's there, and you've lived the life that you're full of regret of. I think that's everyone's
Mhm.
biggest fear, but it's everyone's biggest fear, and then that's like becomes reality. It's like I reckon it's one of everyone's biggest fears, except it does become reality because they get to that moment and they are full of regret. And it's something that I sit with and go, well, I don't want, like the moment I see myself being in is looking everyone in the eye and saying, yeah, I did that thing. Like I wrote that book, which I have. I've started that podcast. I did that business. So I did these things and I'm so proud of what I've done. And now I'm going to guide you onto your life's journey and I'll see you later.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what I see
exactly.
myself doing. Like, I don't have any other way than that. And it's like, that's what I'm striving towards is being in that moment, looking at my grandchildren and great grandchildren and whoever else is in the room and going, well, look at the cool shit
Mhm.
I did.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
this too, and I'm looking forward to guiding you there. And I'll see ya. I'm out. I've checked out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think every single person on this planet struggles with being in the moment. I do. It's something I'm really working
Yeah,
on
same.
right now too.
Yep.
And, we just have to be patient with ourselves, and it's
Is
about
that because
reminding
society
ourselves.
is that because society programs us that, the job and different things that it's always what's next, what's next, what's next? Is that a society thing, do you find?
I feel like it definitely could be for sure. And I think social media is a big part of it.
Yes.
There's a lots of just fake things all over social media. Like it's not even real
Mm.
life. And I feel like majority of us are living our realities through a screen instead of actually living. It's very, very interesting and kind of scary actually when I think about it. And that goes back to before, the same things that I was touching on before. Your circle matters, who you're around matters, your environment matters, and your environment is what you're looking at on your phone. It is what you're doing in your day. It is who you're surrounding yourselves with. And I think we have the full power and ability to not let society, filter that part of us. It's up to us to allow that. It's our decision whether we allow it or whether we don't.
We have the choice, don't we?
Yep, we
And
do.
I just want to circle back. This will probably be our last discussion point. I said that probably 20 minutes ago, but we just went off on another tangent. You said you were talking about death too. So I don't think we touched on that last time. Do you, this is an interesting topic because I've had other few mediums on here, which people can listen to. And they've all said a similar thing about the death timeline.
Yeah.
Do you feel, it's a question that I'm just trying to ask with trying to find the right words. Just say you have a client come to you and they might have something wrong with them that they've been told something and they're asking you if they're gonna,
Yeah.
die soon. How do you go about the whole death thing in your work?
Yeah. I will never ever look at somebody and say, you don't have much time left. This is
Love
when we're
that.
gonna go.
Yep.
No. I think that it's extremely unprofessional. It's
Agreed.
something that really bothers me. And I
Because
don't think that
some psychics do that, Taylor.
they do, and it's obvious that they weren't actually properly trained to work with public people, with public. When you were doing psychic readings for somebody or mediumship readings, you're working with some of the most sensitive parts of people's lives, and if you're not doing it properly and you're not learning how to do it properly, you can destroy somebody's life. And I would stay away from people like that who are willing to answer questions like that. We don't have access to that information. We are not allowed to have access to that information. And
Interesting.
if a client was asked me, a question like that, I would say, I don't have access to that information. And I'm sorry if that's what you're going through. You're being watched over. But yeah, it's just
What if
no.
someone come to you and said, "Oh, such and such around me's," you know, you would get those questions all the time, surely, that someone would come to you and say, "Look, my friend's got a bit going on," and and they ask you for that information. Do you say the same thing too? You're like, "I'm not going into that," because a lot of people will
Yeah.
ask about their relatives or they'll ask about a friend that's been sick.
Oh, you mean
Did
in regards
you,
to just health?
yeah.
How I
So
handle
would you
health?
get,
Okay.
yeah. So would you get that too? And how would you
So
get that?
what I will say is I do have things come up with health, but how I approach it is I tell my clients, take this with a grain of salt. This,
Yep.
if something comes up that I'm picking up on in regards to health, it's not to stress you out. It's not to worry you. It's not to worry anybody. It just means maybe it's worth looking into with a medical professional.
Yep.
That's all that means. I say this is just what I felt. Doesn't mean that it's totally true. It just means it's worth looking into with somebody who's qualified to do so. And I always say,
Mm.
I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor, but sometimes they'll highlight, certain areas. And I had one client and her what happened? There was something to do with his lung, something going on with his lung, and I felt that. And he ended up going and getting checked, and something was going on. And then she emailed me and said if he hadn't have went and got checked, he would have ended up with a collapsed lung. Like, it was the strangest thing that happened, that something came up. But like I say, I'm not putting somebody in a position where I'm worrying them or I'm stressing them out. I say, take this with a grain of salt. It's coming up. Maybe it will be significant. I don't think it's anybody's place.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than a medical professional to deliver news like that.
And how do you go about, so someone will ask about their grandmother or their grandfather or their auntie or their uncle or whatever, and they've recently, been crook or something's gone wrong, and they'll ask you, they go, "Well, how much time do they have left?" Do you give that answer?
No, because I
Good.
don't even know the answer myself. I
Mm.
don't even know it myself. I
Again,
Even if
some
I was
people,
to ask
some
that,
people give
yeah,
that. They give that. They're like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
your
no,
auntie's got,
I
I see it as 6 months or something." They'll say.
no, yeah, I don't agree with it. I don't think that it's anyone's place, and it is
Yeah.
something that it makes me very upset to hear that people do that. I don't
Mm.
think it's anyone's place to do that, and I would never would. I don't touch on those things. I only just say, I'm sorry to hear that that's going on, but no, they're really being watched over. by the unseen, and they're there for you and supporting you through this hard time. That's all. I leave it at that.
Yeah, a lot of the ones I've interviewed over the journey have said similar things that, and they're the same. They're like, oh, people that give, like, people, I don't know how that happens, but yeah, people give that, and it's like, do you really need, like, a lot of people do ask those questions though too, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's understandable, but you really have a big responsibility doing this kind of work, and that's why I think everybody really does need to be trained to some extent before you're working with public people for those reasons. You can really affect somebody's life if you're not, learning how to truly deal with somebody and their emotions.
And working with the energy and working with that other
Exactly.
side too. There's an element of that as well. Speaking of training and
Exactly.
stuff, you did mention you have some courses coming up. Taylor, do you want to share about what they are? Are you
Yes.
ready to share about what they are?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Yes. I have a mediumship level one course that I
Ooh.
have just launched. Actually, I have one group and I have just started a group two. So the dates for group two are November 6th to December 18th. And, we're learning about actually all those important things,
Yes.
as a reader, the ethics of it, the mechanics of mediumship, how to be professional dealing with the public. And then we get into really powerful exercises to unlock your clairvoyant abilities and connecting with your spirit guides and connecting with the other side is what we're going to be doing and going through. So if anyone's
And
interested in that, you can check that out.
where can they go to check that out? Your website.
On my website, taylaisabella.com.
And can anyone join around the world?
Anyone can join all over the world. Yes, no matter
Awesome.
where you are, you can join.
If you're feeling a pull to dabble in or dive into your spiritual gifts, jump on Taylor's website, sign up to her courses. Yeah, that's awesome, Taylor. I love that you're doing that now. That's really cool. You've come a long way,
Thank
and
you.
I'm grateful that you come on today. And thank you so much for giving me that reading. I hope my listeners and viewers got a lot out of today's session. Is there anything that you'd like to share to leave on a final note?
Everyone just keep doing what you're doing, put yourself first, do what you need to do for you, and stop worrying about other people is the message that I can just say. Do you, choose you, be you. And thank you for having me again. It was nice to chat with you again. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure.
you too. I love collaborating with you, Taylor. I love talking with you. Like, we don't really have much of a plan. We just go with it. And yeah, we'll have to do part 3 down the road. I just love having you on. And I'm so grateful my brother found you on one of the platforms and sent me a message saying you should get her on. And yeah, I'm glad I tracked you down all those months ago. And
Mm.
yeah, I love following your work. And yeah, it's really awesome. So thank you so much for accepting my offer to jump back on again. And I really hope that we can do a part 3 down the road. Taylor, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it. This has been the Breaking Free podcast, guys. I'll see you guys again soon. Cheers.